how I got into this mix. Mind playing tricks and I'm fiending for a fix. Habits overriding, imploding into explosion. Tapering away like ocean, coastal erosion.
Welcome to the Conscious Resistance News Wrap-Up. My name is Derek Bros. Today is Sunday, March 8th, 2015. Thank you guys for tuning in for another week as I cover my top stories of the week, written for benswan.com, the Anti-Media, the Liberty Beat, the Conscious Resistance, and the Houston Freethinkers, as well as some other outlets that I contribute to occasionally. And speaking of that, since you guys are taking the time to tune into my podcast, I will let you be the first to know that I'm joining the team for Mint Press News. And if you don't know Mint Press News, please check out the publication ran by an awesome lady, Manar, and she does great work as far as Palestinian-Israeli relations and exposing the crimes of Israel and of the United States government for supporting such actions. And yeah, she runs Mint Press News, and they do a lot of good work. I was recently asked to join the team, and it's going to become official, I believe, the beginning of April. That's all still being worked out, but I will be joining that team and doing some more investigative, in-depth, long-form pieces for them, and I'm excited to do that. And of course, I will be covering those on this podcast. The Conscious Resistance News Wrap-Up is a once-a-week podcast that can be found on soundcloud.com/TCR live. The video version can be found on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Conscious Resistance, or on the website, theconsciousresistance.com, where we also post all of our content, including articles, vlogs, essays, interviews, music spotlights, and all kinds of interesting topics that cover consciousness, spirituality, philosophy, anarchy, pursuits of happiness, meditation, as I said, music. We're going to expand soon and add some cooking shows down the line later this year, hopefully some yoga or health, like exercise related stuff. We want it to be a lifestyle network that you can not only tune in to hear the news and what's going on in the world, but you can find solutions and also be exposed to new music and new radical ideas, because we have to create a culture that is completely different from the one that we are being fed and that is being provided, and create our own cultures and create our own paths towards freedom. And that's what this is about. So every week I cover the top stories, and I also cover what we're doing on the consciousresistance.com. The Conscious Resistance Network team does, as I said, a number of different things. This week, I just added a new video right before we started this, called from the Central Texas Mutual Aid Society, based in Austin, Texas, ran by John Bush and others. It's going to be an ongoing operation promoting the idea that John has been spreading called Freedom Cells. And I went to a talk of his on Thursday night in Austin, and did some video and got to hear some ideas and questions from people, and it's really exciting. I'm going to be bringing these ideas to Houston, and I encourage you to watch the video, listen to his ideas, and see how you think they might apply to your community. Basically building freedom cells, 8 to 10 people in your community that you can trust and count on in times of emergency and need. Forming a plan with those people, like what would you do in case of emergency, hurricane, economic collapse, whatever it may be. Having just different plans, doing community gardens together, all kinds of ideas where you can sort of lean on each other in a real communal way and help each other. And in the possibility that you need defense from the state, that might be a option further down the line. So lots of interesting topics and ideas within that talk. Please check that out. We also had 2 posts from Danilo in the past couple days, aka Peaceful Anarchism. He put a free streaming link on the website to a documentary. I think it just was released. It's called Bot, a vaccine documentary. And the subtitle says, "Your health is now brought to you by Wall Street." So check that one out. I haven't watched it myself yet, but I'm sure it's interesting, if not disturbing. When he also posted an interview from Dana Martin, who's an awesome lady, radical unschooler, natural childbirth advocate. So he talks with Dana a bit about those topics and more. And we also got a new piece from Rollo, who is doing more good work. His piece is called "Your Happiness is What You Make of It." good stuff. Check it out. It's about finding that balance within, that contentment. And we restarted our music spotlight as of last week. I think I forgot to tell you guys on the show last week, but we restarted for a while the music spotlight. When you go to the website, there's a music tab, and you can click down there and you'll find a bunch of old music videos that I've been posting. When I was doing a live show and live on camera, 30-minute show, I was promoting music, and then I stopped for a while. It just got a bit too much work for me to do at the time. I decided to focus on writing, but I still want to promote music and art and these various ideas, because as I've said time and time again, that in order to really change the minds and the hearts of the people, we have to change the culture. We can't just talk them from the academic, political standpoint. We have to feed and support these alternative agorist ideas, people who are spreading the message through art and through music and through the word and through writing and through active, all these different forms, because we all have a different skill and different strengths. And I think that for me, I make music, I do activism, I write articles, everything that I do, I make sure that I can put out a positive, empowering message through it, because that's just what I think that we should do whenever we come to this point. We have to help, reach other people and keep growing, and that's my goal. So we're going to keep doing that and highlighting new music. And last week's was Don't Let Them Get Away with Murder by Just Siri X. It's a really cool video. It's a hip-hop video, him talking about the cops, of course. Don't let them get away with murder. And today's show will be ending with a new song as well, and I'll get into that once we get there. But yeah, every week we're going to be the show will end with a new song of all genres. So there's a lot of conscious hip-hop out there, so that might be some of the focus, but there's also conscious heavy bands and folk artists and anything out there that you guys have. Please send over to us at the Conscious Resistance website, or you can email me at derek@theconsciousresistance.com, and I should get that if you have ideas for music. Because it's important to promote these musicians. And also, I think some people have asked, the song that the podcast plays at the beginning, that real funky one, that's from a band called Technicolor Lenses, and they're from New York City, and they're really awesome. All their music's available for free online, technicolorlenses.bandcamp, I think, .com. Go find them. They're really great. And of course, last week I posted the video for my appearance on the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association's show Reasonable Doubt, which was on Houston Public Access, Cable Access TV, where I discussed Stingray cell phone surveillance, which we will be once again talking about today, because news just keeps coming in, and I guess it's just since I'm leading the charge in Houston and staying on top of the news here, I really feel like I can help not just in Houston but nationally expose these stingrays. And we've got some new positive news and some more disturbing news on the use of the stingrays. And this Friday in Houston, actually, Friday the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, Friday the 13th, I'll be giving another presentation on stingray cell phone surveillance to the Houston Property Rights Association, which tends to be an older crowd, which is kind of cool, because I want to get these older folks to be awake that this monitoring is happening and really get it into their head. And these people are older folks with money, and they might be willing to put resources into this fight. So we'll see what I can do. But that's all the new stuff we have going on at theconsciousresistance.com. So check it out. Please, check it out at least once a week. I can't really, I know we're all busy, but I am just, every time I look at it, I'm just thrilled with the people that I work with and the breadth and the depth of the content, everything from surveillance to, analyzing government and current issues, to inspirational stuff, looking at forgiveness, happiness, my news wrap-ups, lots of great interviews. And this is going back over, we're coming up on 2 years now that the Conscious Resistance Network has been the way it is, and not just a website for my work. And there's a lot of good content building on there. So thank you to everybody who works with us and supports us. If you're ever interested in supporting us more directly, you can go to the About tab, and there's an invest page, or just theconsciousresistance.com/invest. If you want to throw us some Bitcoin or any kind of change, we appreciate it, and it will all go towards building the network and getting more people the message. So thanks for that. Now let's get into the news. I'm going to spend a couple of minutes discussing another study on fluoride. And I know some of you who maybe come here for the more anarchist, philosophical side of my thoughts of the show might be disappointed that I'm discussing fluoride, but I hope that you'll also be willing to take the time to look into this issue objectively and realize that there are a wealth of studies that from around the world, You know, you got to get outside of just the United States, and that point to a number of problems with fluoride. And I'm not going to beat a dead horse because I talked about fluoride last week. And if you're really interested in this topic, then you should check out some of the many articles that I've written on the topic. You can find them on benswan.com, theantimedia.org, and just search my name in fluoride and you'll find some stuff. And I'll post them in the links if you guys are interested. But this article that I just wrote this past week for benswan.com is titled "New Study Draws Connections Between Water Fluoridation and ADHD in Children." Now, I know the first thing that everybody said is they're seeing this article, but ADHD is a made-up thing, you know, and I don't doubt that. And, you know, some people point to this video that exists where the guy who supposedly discovered ADHD on his deathbed admitted that he lied and it was a made-up disease or a made-up disorder or whatever. I haven't watched the video myself. And even then, I'm not doubting it. I mean, to me, it sounds completely plausible. But regardless of whether the actual, some, you know, specific disease or disorder that we can call ADHD exists, the symptoms do exist as far as affecting children's focus and, you know, and some kids are all different, right? So some of them are we just daydream more than others, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean that we should like use these pills to suppress kids' creativity. That's not what I'm saying. But there are definitely a number of things influencing children in the way that they live, the way that they act and think, and their intelligence. And as I'm about to go through, fluoride has been associated with several studies that have shown problems with affecting the intelligence and a number of other issues with our brains and our bodies, and definitely children are a vulnerable population. So whether or not you believe in ADHD, I still think this study is relevant because it's pointing at a set of symptoms that we could say that children do have, or some children have in a number of instances, and we can then, you know, of course, correlation doesn't always equal causation, but it's important if you have a number of studies from all over the world pointing at various problems with fluoride, and then you have some official bodies telling you that it's okay, don't worry about it. I mean, logically, objectively, you should probably look to the one that has the more overwhelming evidence, and you should look for yourself, of course, always. And there have been some studies on fluoride that haven't been always, controlled and completely provable, or I guess plausible. Some are more rigid in their methods than others, but again, there's still overwhelming evidence that fluoride has problems with it. So this new study comes from the Department of Psychology at Toronto's York University. It was published in the Environmental Health Journal. Researchers studied data on ADHD among children aged 4 to 17 collected in 2003, 2007, and 2011 as part of the National Survey of Children's Health, as well as state water fluoridation data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, which was collected between 1992 and 2008. And in this study, this is the first study to analyze the relationship between exposure to fluoridated water and the prevalence of ADHD in children. What they found was that children living in areas with the majority of the population receiving fluoridated water from public water systems, quote, tended to have a greater proportion of children and adolescents diagnosed with ADHD. The researchers concluded that, quote, this study has empirically demonstrated an association between more widespread exposure to fluoridated water and increased ADHD prevalence in U.S. children and adolescents, even after controlling for socioeconomic status. The findings suggest that fluoridated water may be an environmental risk factor for ADHD. I mean, no conspiracy, nothing crazy there, right? Of course, you want to dig in and see exactly what they did and see if it satisfies your mind, if you think it was a sound study. I looked into this study. I think it was. Previous studies have also shown rats exposed to fluoride chemicals exhibit ADHD-like symptoms. Other studies have found impaired learning and memory among rats that drank 5 milligrams per liter of sodium fluoride-treated water for 6 months. So they're dosing rats up and they're getting sick. The paper advises, of course, further studies are needed to understand the relationship between fluoride exposure and ADHD. The ADHD was also prevalent in higher rates for males, children of low socioeconomic status, older children, and for children whose parents had a high school education compared to those whose parents did not graduate high school. So those are some interesting factors, and we don't really know what that means until they do more work into this. They also found that fluoridated water is not the only source of fluoride intake for U.S. citizens, and this is important for some of you who may not know this. As the authors note, quote, the U.S. is one of the most widely fluoridated countries in the world, with approximately 74% of the population receiving fluoridated water for the supposed prevention of dental issues. Americans are also consuming fluoride through public water systems in the with the addition of chemicals including hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is the most popular one I've seen coming out of Mosaic Co. from Florida, sodium fluorosilicate, and sodium fluoride. And this study comes after the study that I wrote about last week, which was published in the BMJ's, the British Medical Journal's Journal of Epidemiology and Community Health, which confirmed fluoride's negative effect on the thyroid gland, and they drew possible connections to depression, weight gain, and other negative health effects that are attributed to fluoride displacing the iodine molecule in the thyroid gland and creating an underactive thyroid, which can mess up your metabolism and cause weight gain and all kinds of things. And of course, the researchers in this new study from York University, they also reference, and I tend to stay away from this study because I've seen some criticism saying that it wasn't very accurate, or that it wasn't done with good controls, or that so IQ is irrelevant. But I know that you guys have probably heard of the Harvard study that came out last year, the year maybe 2013, that showed that fluoride is connected to lower IQ. Well, the researchers in this study said, based on that study, we believe it is plausible that fluoride is also contributing to attention-related symptoms, giving its association with lower IQ. So these researchers, these scientists, found that study reputable enough to reference in their work, and it's important that we look into that. The last note I make here is that other examples of health problems related to water fluoridation include a 2010 U.S. National Health and Nutrition Survey, which found that approximately 41% of 12 to 15-year-olds suffer from dental fluorosis, a consequence of fluoride overexposure. Dental fluorosis results in the yellowing and pitting of teeth, and there's a big problem with this. And of course, the CDC just thinks that's a cosmetic effect. It's nothing to worry about. But I think that if your children are going around with pitted and yellow teeth, they might feel insecure about that, and that's something that doesn't need to happen if they stop drinking fluoride. So stop fluoridating your kids, and buy a water filter if possible, shower filter if possible, even more, because you consume a lot through there. And I'm still working on getting one of those. I was showering outside for a while using solar shower, but it's not always convenient, so I need to get a water shower filter so I don't have to absorb fluoride through my skin. All right, let's move on to the Stingray news. Another big topic for us today. This is my ongoing investigation into and just keeping up with the constant stream of new Stingray news, Stingray cell phone surveillance, and surveillance in general. The first story we're going to deal with actually is related to automatic license plate readers, but it's connected to the fight against Stingrays, because we're seeing the exact same situation. And what I mean by that is police departments are signing secretive agreements to use license plate readers. The license plate readers, automatic license plate readers, are cameras that are sometimes placed on the back of cop cars or on top of them. They can also be inside of them, and they're various devices. They can also be placed around town, like at toll booths, and they get your license plate, in case they need to ticket you or whatever. The New York Police Department is considering signing a contract with Vigilant, the company that specializes in gathering billions of license plate records. Ars Technica reported this week that documents show that the NYPD is seeking to contract with Vigilant for access to their National Vehicle Location Service, NVLS. And much like the Stingray cell phone surveillance tools, police departments who contract with this company, they sign agreements not to publicly discuss the database. The documents show that the 2014 terms and conditions explicitly state that the agreement is, quote, specifically intended to prohibit users from cooperating with any media outlet to bring attention to the database. The American Civil Liberties Union says the departments are likely violating open records laws by refusing to release details. And this is just a part of a bigger issue. I mean, this is the problem with the changing landscape of surveillance. I think that Edward Snowden and other whistleblowers have put an eye on the surveillance state, so Americans are looking for ways to fix that and to go after that. So you're seeing various laws passed to prevent police from doing certain things, but at the same time, you see these companies working to establish precedents that allow them to circumvent the law through these non-disclosure agreements. Now, I have no idea how this works. Like, when I first started finding this, I was like, wait, this is insane. How can a corporation write a contract that forces, of course it doesn't force the police make a choice, but it tells the police that, hey, as part of our contract, which is legally binding and you could face legal action, you can't talk to anybody about how you use these tools, including the media, including the courts. So much to the point that the police are now willing to withdraw evidence and withdraw whole cases if it means that they don't have to disclose how the tools are being used. So either they're extremely scared of Harris Corps and vigilant solutions here, or they're just playing along with them because they want to continue to have access to these tools, and they signed a contract with this company and they're like, damn, if we violate this, more than likely they won't be wanting to work with us anymore because we expose their secrets. And so they use all these bullshit reasons, like they need to protect their their secrets from criminals who might learn how they're using them and then learn how to escape them. And yeah, of course, that's a possibility. But what about the majority of the population that are just good people living their lives? They're getting caught up in the crossfire of your surveillance. Shouldn't they have any rights and knowledge of how this device is being used and what information is being gathered on them? I'd say so. I think there's an article you can find of mine. If you search automatic license plate readers and my name, you'll find a article that goes into depth about automatic license plate readers, and really I think surveillance from drones, automatic license plate readers, gunshot detectors, these audio recorders that they can put in telephone poles and light poles and stuff, Stingrays, internet surveillance. I mean, there's a number of things you got to worry about. But yeah, now more and more the surveillance isn't just online in your digital communications. It's when you're walking around the world. There's just, they have access, according to Edward Snowden and other whistleblowers, to every CCTV that exists, and closed circuit camera, and plus their own network. So you're in your house and they could be listening to you through your TV or through your remotely through your computer or your phone. And then when you say you leave your phone at home and you step outside, well, then they just turn on that camera that's at the corner of your street and follow you there. And then once you walk into the grocery store, they hack into that camera and they watch you walk through and shop your groceries, and then watch you on the way back. And when you're walking home, they turn on the recorder from the that's inside the light pole so they can hear your conversation that you might be having. And just all kind of crazy situations like that, because there is surveillance everywhere, and that's the reality. But it doesn't mean it's a reality we have to accept. Some would say, well, let's move past privacy and get to a point where we just have complete transparency. I know that Adam Kokesh has argued that by having complete surveillance, and actually by us surveying ourselves, then we will create a culture of transparency so that the light will be shined on the government as well. I tend to disagree, because right now their focus of the technology and their funds and their resources are on the people. They're not focusing the light on their own selves and saying, okay, we're going to put, we're going to start surveying all of our own employees to make sure that they're acting well and root out corruption. No, they're following the people, because that's where the problem's coming from, right? The people, that's domestic extremists, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that we can still use technologies, and I've talked plenty about this. I'm going to do a podcast really soon in the next week or two going into these solutions, more about net neutrality and why I think that we don't need to worry about net neutrality actually, and that we can support the supernet, the outer net, and these bit revolutions and Internet 2.0 solutions that will use technology to free us, and not just for internet and communication, but mesh networks, alternative telephone networks, cellular networks, so that we don't need the government and their corporations. And that's the real solution here. And the same thing, we need to come up with our own technologies that can jam their technologies. Now, what is the legality of that? I think at some point we got to stop asking, is this legal, and just do what we need to do to protect ourselves. If the government's freaking surveying you all the time and you've got the technology to jam it up and mess it up, well, why the heck aren't we doing it? We can't keep asking, well, are the oppressors going to allow us to do this? Are we going to get in trouble by them? Of course we're going to get in trouble if we do this, Being free now is a dangerous thing. Being a free mind is a dangerous thing to do in America in 2015, because other people might look at you like you're crazy. You could get, locked up for all kinds of things, talking about freedom. Freedom's a radical idea in 2015. It's crazy to think about that. Moving on to the next surveillance story, and more on why we can use technology to free us from their surveillance and actually flip it around, have the transparency focused on government action and not people. I mean, I think we should still push for transparency among the people and amongst ourselves, because this is how we're going to create a better world. We have to be real with our communities. We have to, have honesty and respect and communication. Those are all important, of course, but we don't need the government monitoring us. We need to have community regulation, self-regulation, self-governance, and do this on the individual level, so that we don't need somebody else from on high to come stand up and say, this is how you need to live your life. New documents reveal that Stingray cell phone surveillance interferes with the service of nearby devices. And this is coming out of the Florida documents that were released a couple weeks ago, and continuing to divulge new information about how the Stingray cell phone surveillance actually works. And what we found out was that the tools actually disrupt cellular service to targeted devices as well as phones in the immediate area. So they're looking for me, right? They have a case against me, and I'm in an apartment building. They know where I live, and they're using a Stingray to try to locate my phone and see if I'm home, right? And see what kind of data they can get from if I'm calling any known drug dealers or whatever. Let's assume that that's what they're really doing, right? That they're not just indiscriminately monitoring people. You live next to me, and you live there with your daughter and your family, and then you've got some neighbors that are just an old couple who don't bother anybody. These are all the people that live around me, right? Well, you're sitting down watching Netflix, you're enjoying House of Cards with your family, and all of a sudden your internet starts getting messed up, right? It starts skipping, it starts delaying, your signal goes out for a few minutes, and you can't understand why, and it does this for maybe 30 minutes to an hour, right? And then it goes back to normal, and you don't ever question it, right? The other neighbors are talking on the phone to their daughter, calling them and telling them how much they love her, and for whatever reason, the signal starts going bad, and again, they can't make a phone call for 30 minutes to an hour. And I'm sitting here in my room, and I'm using my phone, and for whatever reason, my phone just dies pretty quickly, even though I realized I just charged it a couple hours ago and it should be fully charged. It dies within that 30 minute to an hour period, and then I plug it in and I go about my business. I never suspect anything. These are the kind of things that happen whenever Stingray cell phone surveillance tools are being used against somebody. What these new documents show is that these tools can intermittently disrupt cellular service to a, quote, small fraction of wireless customers who are in the immediate area. And that's not just cell phone service, but I mean, if you're using the internet, if you're, it's just wireless devices in that area. This comes from that same release of documents. In there was an application for a warrant by FBI Special Agent Michael Skimeka, who admitted that the devices do have the potential to intermittently disrupt cellular devices. The devices force phones to downgrade from 3G and 4G networks, which are encrypted and secure, to the less secure 2G networks to intercept data being sent from the phones to cellular towers. And this can cause a disruption in internet service and the ability to make and receive calls for a brief period of time. And this, of course, raises new questions on what, if anything, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, knew about the service disruption. And they're, of course, the agency responsible for approving the devices. They're also the agency that we just gave the authority to vote on regulating the internet, and they're apparently not being forthcoming about what they knew about Stingrays and their ability to interfere with other devices. Or Harris Corps from Florida is lying to them. So that's why it's important. There's just so many different angles in this Stingray thing. It really is like a soap opera. I mean, you've got all the important characters. You got the FBI telling local police departments not to talk about it. You've got local police departments not talking about it. You've got Harris Corps telling them they're going to sue them if they talk about it. You've got the U.S. Marshals interfering in some cases and seizing evidence and telling them not to talk about it. You've got the FCC saying, we never told them they couldn't talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about why they're not talking about it. It's really interesting. And the last piece of surveillance news today, and a positive one actually, and this is related to the Stingrays again. I say it's positive because I think all actions towards a more free world are important and are valuable. Now, does that mean that I would necessarily take the steps that this next story took, which is going through the fold of the government? No, I wouldn't pursue a method like that, but I definitely wouldn't stand against it. I wouldn't oppose or hate or make fun of or condemn my brothers and sisters who choose to fight within the realms of government, and especially if they achieve positive ends like this. But again, my solutions for Stingrays are educating people, giving presentations, talking about it, writing about it, spreading awareness, and hoping that other people care about it just as much as I do and are willing to take action, because I can't do this alone. But I'm doing what I can, which is, of course, changing my behavior, being aware, and working to educate and support efforts to create technologies that can either circumvent the stingrays, jam them up, or make our phones go dark to them in some way, you know, make your signal go dark. I don't know. I want to support those methods, you know, these active resistance, not just going and begging them to stop. But again, sometimes good things do happen. And in this case, we have an example of that. The Washington State House passed a bill to restrict stingrays and drones. Now, there is one issue that I will say with this bill. We'll get into that in a moment. The Washington State House of Representatives passed a new set of bills to protect individuals' privacy against stingray cell phone surveillance and drone aircraft. One of these bills would make it a state misdemeanor for a private citizen to use a drone to spy on another person. It would also require specific legislative permission for police to buy new drones. And with a unanimous vote of 97-0, the House voted in favor of requiring police to obtain a warrant before using stingrays. These bills now are headed to the Senate for approval. We'll see if they go there. Now, back on the drone bill for a moment. The drone bill says that it makes it a misdemeanor for a private citizen to use a drone to spy on another person. And it says police have to, you know, get specific legislative permission to buy new drones. Okay, so that's good, right? And of course, this is just dealing with the state bill. But how much stronger would it have been, and maybe they tried this and maybe it wouldn't have passed if they were directly opposing the federal government, because the federal government likes to intervene. But what if they had a bill that said it made it illegal and that you could fine or arrest any federal agency or any federal government employee who used the drone to monitor on the people, or even a state employee? You know, the bill says nothing about government monitoring. It says, yeah, the police got to try a little bit harder to get their drones, but it doesn't say anything about a penalty for somebody from the government monitoring or spying on a citizen of an individual from a drone. And I think that's an issue. But still, a victory, a small victory, and it's moving forward. We'll see if it passes the state Senate in Washington, and if it becomes law, because it would be the first state law to restrict stingrays in any way if they both go through. Keep your eye on that. Now, the last two stories that I'm going to cover for today deal with the police and then mutual aid societies and solutions. And I could talk for quite a while on these topics, but I want to wrap this up in the next 15 minutes, so I'm going to move swiftly. Last Sunday, after I did the other show, I realized there was a shooting that happened in Los Angeles on the corner of East 6th Street and South San Pedro Street. The Los Angeles Police Department killed a homeless man who now we know was going by the name of Africa. The officers were reportedly responding to a call involving an altercation between two individuals when a struggle began. A video of the shooting shows two officers detaining one individual and four other officers holding down a man when one of the officers begins firing. The officers fire once, pauses, and then fires four more times, and the man was pronounced dead on the scene. And it's a pretty freaking disturbing video. I mean, they all are, but this is just like four dudes on one already, and for whatever reason, this jackass decides to pull his gun out and start shooting. And I'm playing the clip of the video right now. You see one, it's like a skinny, like homeless black chick who, like, for 1 second she grabs the police baton, and then two cops grab her and throw her around all rough. And meanwhile, in the background, the other four cops are on top of homeboy Africa and just hold him down. And he's kicking and flailing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe he's on drugs, but dude, you got tasers and shit. I mean, fuck. Like, you guys are that weak for, y'all couldn't like hold him down, really? I mean, I don't know what the hell kind of training you're getting, but dude, it doesn't take that much to hold down one skinny homeless person. You know, nothing against the dude. I'm just saying he's kind of a small guy, and these dumbasses shoot him. Since then, thankfully, there have been major protests surrounding Los Angeles, the LAPD headquarters, police department headquarters, and just, you know, showing them that, like, you know, you kill one of us, we're going to take the streets. I mean, there's thousands marching through the streets. There's a lot of big things happening out there. I've seen a couple of arrests. I think one of the anti-media journalists this week got arrested. Maybe one or two of them did. I think Patty, PM Beers, she got arrested again. She gets arrested quite a bit for live streaming and doing a great work, getting in there in the face of the police. But, you know, in LA, those activists are tough. They don't, you know, even in this video, you can see people are surrounding the cops, getting close, like saying, you know, fuck you, you know, you guys just killed another person, you know. I mean, like, I don't know, dude. I've said this before. I hope I'm never, ever in this situation, because I don't want to die, you know. I've got a long life ahead of me, but there's just a piece of me in my being that will not allow me, and I've played it over in my head time and time again, how would I respond to the situation? I got to think about, I'm better off alive than I am dead. But still, if police were like beating somebody, or if they shot somebody, dude, I couldn't sit there. I would have to approach. I mean, I would disarm. Like my idea here is basically that as a community, if a cop comes into our community and shoots somebody, I don't care what the heck the situation is. I mean, I guess if this person is stabbing the cop and the cop needs to save his life, then yeah, I mean, you're always, every individual is free to defend themselves. Now, the cops, though, they have a monopoly on self-defense. They can kill people, and more than, like, I don't know what the statistics is, but I'm going to say like 9 times out of 10, the cops are going to get off with it. And we've seen that more and more as there's a focus on racism and violence with the police. And I think I'm glad people are noticing the police state, and it's not just a couple of bad apples. It's the training, it's the militarization. There's a lot of things that are going into this. But if a cop comes into our community and shoots somebody, we surround them and disarm that officer. We take their badge, we take their gun, and I'm not advocating violence against this person. I'm telling you to disarm them, to take their badge, and to send them out of the neighborhood. Tell them they're not welcome here, to leave. And and if they come back, if they send more cops back, then there would be an issue. And this is where the next story the next idea that we're going to end on tonight, mutual aid societies, mutual aid organizations, comes in helpful. Because if you've got your 8 to 10 people, your freedom cell, and you got freedom cells in the neighborhood next door, you call them up and say, guys, they just killed one of our people. We just need we need numbers right now. We're nothing about violence. Just get as many people as you can over here. The police might be coming back because we just took, their guns and disarmed their people and told them they weren't welcome here. Please come here to support us. And if you can get these people and have hundreds of people who are willing to stand up to the police, and there's no violence needed, I mean, they're the ones coming with violence. They're the ones that are dressed up in riot gear and coming with weapons and guns. We just have to stand in numbers and truth and strength and honesty and stand for freedom, and we will be on the right side of things, and that's what truly matters. But I mean, it's sickening, and I don't think that I can stand there and just watch that happen. I don't think it's inside of me, and I don't want it to be inside of me. I can't stand there and watch another human being be murdered without knowing that I did whatever I could to stop it. And that's just me. We've all got various levels of how we approach these situations. I wrote an article a while back for the antimedia.org. It's called, I think it was called Community Defense as an Alternative to the Police State, or something like that. I'll find it and I'll post it in the information below. But it's a great article, and I think you should look into it. And I examined some of the auto defenses in Mexico, which aren't perfect, but these small communities that live and have community defense that aren't going around ticketing people for bullshit. They're not bothering people. They just come together if the community needs to be defended, or if somebody really is like killing people, they will come out and take care of that. But these are they're spontaneous, they're anarchist in some sense, and I think these are great ideas. And it's not so simple. I know there's a lot of different situations, and people worry about, everybody's going to have their own private army, and but I don't think. I mean, yes, there will be some examples that will have to be worked through, and I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but is what we have right now easy? Watching people get killed and murdered just because it hasn't affected you yet, because you're at a point where it's not really going to get to. I mean, I don't know. We have to reconsider how much we really give a shit about things. And if something doesn't affect you and you're not willing to look at it, then I mean, I think you need to think deeper. These problems are affecting more and more people. This is not just. It definitely affects people of color more often and lower income people, but that's not all. This militarization of the police, you may feel safe now, but it's happening all around the country, and it can happen to anyone, and we need to be aware of that. So I think we need to find new solutions. I mean, we're on the 50th anniversary of one of the biggest civil rights actions, the Selma, Alabama march, where people who were fighting for voting rights were attacked by the police, and it sparked outrage across the nation and really helped catalyze the movement towards getting people of color the right to vote and to begin to be respected. But 50 years later, people still see a lot of examples of racism and a lot of examples of division, and I think this has really been sparked up by the Ferguson stuff in the last year. And whatever your thoughts on that, I just think that it is obvious that there is there are some civil rights issues still going on, but I think that we need to figure out that it's not just people of color versus the institutions of government, which definitely there's still some pretty blatant examples of racism that exist in our world today. But it's becoming more and more the people versus the state, the police state versus the people. We need to recognize that. We need to recognize that it is, and I'm not saying that it's us versus them. I hate creating that mentality, this to feed into this us versus them. We're the good guys, they're the bad guys, because obviously not all cops are bad. And I think that there are maybe some people who join those institutions and think they can change it, but I don't really believe that. I think that we have to change the institution itself. We have to redefine what policing means, and we have to break it down in its current form, which is a monopoly on force and violence, which is basically the enforcement arm of the state and the will of the state. Because at the end of the day, they're going to do what their job says, and they are going to listen to the law until they're ready to, like I said, for one officer to be like, dude, what the fuck? You just killed that dude. You did not need to do that. Give me your fucking gun right now. Until the cops start doing that to each other, then I think it's time that we start doing that. And maybe that sounds radical. Maybe that sounds dangerous to you. It may be dangerous, but I think it's better than standing by and watching people die every time and having a reactive position, because we react. We have to go to the streets, and I'm glad we're shutting down the streets. I'm glad we're marching. I'm glad we're getting in their face, because every time they kill one of us, we got to take the streets. But beyond that, we have to start being proactive. We have to break down their institutions themselves, not just continue to be the ones on the on the defensive. We need to go on the offensive. When they come into our communities and they commit violence, we need to make it known and shown that they will not be allowed back into our communities, and that we won't stand for that. And I want to hear your ideas on this. Please leave comments in the SoundCloud and the YouTube channel. I really hope you guys will tune into this and share it with your friends, because I think these are important radical ideas that we need to consider. We need to consider radical change and stop looking to the same ideas, the same solutions always. And speaking of radical ideas, the last topic I got here before we wrap up for this week deals with that meeting I discussed earlier, the Central Texas Mutual Aid Society meeting, which is on Thursday, March 5th. And this is a new idea, a new organization that's being put together by organizer, activist, agorist, personal inspiration to me, and editor of the Liberty Beat, John Bush. So he detailed how groups of individuals and families committed to rendering mutual aid, which is just the idea of, like it sounds, mutually beneficial aid, coming together to help each other, to one another, can help achieve a higher standard of living, more freedom, and more security. The Mutual Aid Society is made up of a series of small groups of 8 to 12 people that work closely with one another in supporting each other's needs and achieving mutual goals. This was hosted in Austin at Brave New Books, and as I said, I was thankful to be a part of it. The video is up on theconsciousresistance.com, and I'll let John, I hope you guys will watch it. It's about an hour and 45 minutes. He goes into his history and then this idea, and then there's some good questions from the audience, and I add a few points to it. I really hope you will take the time to watch it. And there's also an article that I'll post as well that John wrote that details freedom cells. So yeah, but I mean, these are ideas we need to consider, right? I've said this time and time again, but we're going to repeat it because it needs to be put into action, right? And the more that we take our thoughts and we create them and we manifest them into our words, and if we follow with consistency, they will become our actions, right? So we want to be consistent in creating institutions of liberty, institutions that are outside the state and that give people more freedom and not less freedom. Then we need to take our thoughts, speak them into our words, and then from our words, create action. So my words to you are today that we need to find land. We need to not just move. I love the Free State Project idea, and I think there's a lot of good people there, but I don't think it matters if you're in the most free state in the country. Yeah, life might be a bit easier for you, but I'll tell you what, I break laws all the time that are victimless, because if I want to smoke some pot, then I do. If I want to do a garden without a license, then I do. I'm not going to move somewhere because the state says it's a little bit more free and I feel free. I mean, I get the idea, but to me, I'm going to be as free as I want, and no matter what geographic landmass I am, especially in the confines of my own home, my own community, I just don't worry about it. I know when I go out into the public, into their world, that I risk being arrested or facing the transgressions of the police and the government institutions, but that's a risk I have to take when I go into public to exchange ideas and communicate with other free individuals. But I think it is important to get pieces of land, to have your area in the city or in the country or wherever you're out, but maybe to get piece of land working together with your 8 to 10 people, and again having them get those individuals reaching out to their own 8 to 10 people and watching this idea blossom and grow. And it really becomes like what I would call the jeweled net of Indra, which is from Hinduism and Buddhism. And this is something that we explore in my book, The Conscious Resistance. The idea of interdependence, and that's the parable from Buddhism, and the jeweled net of Indra is basically this idea of individuals as shining diamonds that are connected, strewn together on this net that extends in all directions infinitely. And each of them is beautiful and badass on their own, but they also reflect, each of their side reflects each of the other individual diamonds, and so we're reflecting each other constantly and shining off of each other. And it's a beautiful idea, and that's the way I think these freedom cells can really work, is to you create one and everybody else creates their 8 to 10, and it's just soon together we have this infinite web that will cover the world. And instead of needing these nation states and these large governing bodies, we can still be a beautiful, individually empowered but collective world, and still have our sovereignty as individuals and as smaller communities, which is where people tend to thrive, is in these groups of 8 to 10, is as John discussed in the video. It's been shown that people do best in those type of groups that are about that size. So we get our own little pieces of land. We start researching and investing into mesh networks, into alternative forms of communication, creating our own cell towers and things like that. See how the FCC feels about that. Creating our own independent currencies, both that can work within the cityscape and that could work on communities of a couple hundred together on land. And I think one great example for those who are interested in actually being the one to lead the charge on this is to go back and to read some of the journals and the essays and the writings of some of America's first settlers. You've got like Josiah Warren and these other people who tried various forms of anarchist communities and failed and succeeded in various ways for a certain amount of years. And we can read their writings and we can learn lessons from them. We don't have to start from the ground up. We can see what worked for people then and be like, okay, well, this is how we think. We can adapt this, and maybe this will work better. And it's going to be a trying process. I've lived in a community house for 2 years. I know people who lived on land with other people, and we've all discussed our struggles and our trials, and it's a learning process. But if freedom means something, then we need to be willing to pursue it, right? We need to be willing to do the hard work. Anarchy and true freedom is not something easy. It's not for the lazy. It's not for the weak-hearted. It is for the determined, for those with personal responsibility and personal aspirations to pick themselves up to a higher standard of living, one that says, I deserve to be free, and I am the only one that can give myself that freedom, not some government, not some piece of paper, not some book, and not an other external object or person. It comes from within, and you have to be willing to claim that. So it takes a lot of work. But these ideas, mutual aid societies, freedom cells, these are going to be my next focus. Once I get this book out, I'm going to move towards more on just promoting. I'm going to keep writing and doing journalism. But even that, to me, journalism, alternative independent journalism, is a part of agorism, these alternative institutions to compete with the state. While it destroys itself from within, we continue to educate people about the failures of the state, and at the same time support and build alternative institutions that give people a way out. And as we do this, and how these freedom cells grow and the jeweled net of Indra spreads across the world, it will be so much easier for the new minds who are waking from the matrix to see that there are solutions, there are alternatives, there are independent currencies, there are independent media, there are independent forms of communications and other alternets, other alter internets, and there are alternative forms of production, and there are other alternative forms of music and art and things that they can really get themselves into that aren't this dried up, just shallow facade of what we could actually be, of what humanity deserves and can be. And that's what I'm after. And I really think that this is what 2015 and 2016 are going to be about for my life as I move towards getting this book out, promoting this philosophy that I think can help change the world and change people's thinking, and then at the same time begin creating these physical solutions. And that's my goal for 2015 and 2016. I hope you guys will join me. And that's it for the show today. I hope you guys have enjoyed the show. Please do watch that Central Texas Mutual Aid Society video that I was just discussing. It can be found. It's the latest video on theconsciousresistance.com right now. And stay tuned to theconsciousresistance.com throughout the week. We'll have lots of new videos coming from our team. I really hope that you will check those out. And of course, our music spotlight, as I said, we're restarting that. And we'll be ending today's show with our latest artist for the music spotlight. And the other cool thing about the music spotlight, let me tell you this, is that we are going to be interviewing these guests that we're bringing on here. So I mentioned earlier last week's artist was Jasiri X, who did the song "Don't Let Them Get Away with Murder." I'm going to be interviewing him Wednesday afternoon, and that video will be out by the end of this week. And this week's artist for the Music Spotlight is Akala, and I don't really know much about him. I think he's from somewhere in the UK. He sounds like he's got an accent. And the song that we're going to play is, I think it's called "Fire in the Booth," I believe. Check it out though. It's a few minutes long, but definitely it's hip hop as well. So it's the kind of music that you want to pay attention to the lyrics, because he's really intelligent. He's got a lot to say, and it's powerful music. So check it out. It'll be up on our website under the music tab if you want to check the video out, and then share it to your friends and family. And thank you guys for tuning in. I'll be back next Sunday, of course, wrapping up the top news. And if you want to hear my other podcast, which is for my Patreon subscribers, go to patreon.com, patreon.com/DerekBros. That is for supporters of mine. If you want to give as little as $1 a month, you can sign up and get exclusive podcasts where I discuss other issues and have exclusive articles. So far, I've been releasing a chapter a week from my book. I also did in-depth coverage of the Barrett Brown trial, the Silk Road, and other things in the past. So you get access to all of those podcasts. And like I said, you can do it for as little as $1 a month. And I appreciate that. So yeah, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube and our SoundCloud. Thank you guys for always tuning in. And as always, if you can hear this, you are the resistance. Peace.
Yo. Okay. Yo. I like you. You're like a tiger. Yes, I grew up on a dole in a single parent family. Been through a little bit of tragedy. Yes, I was around drugs and violence before the day that I started secondary. That's part of it, not half of it. Get the picture, the rest ain't necessary. Growing up, got a little caught up. That ain't even half of my life. Also given the knowledge of self, that is all we actually need to survive. If you saw me, age 9, reading Malcolm, just fine. Teachers still treated me stupid. Students that couldn't speak English, they put me in groups with. The irony is, some of the first man to give me schooling, you were called youngsters. I already explained that we know what the truth is. They used to say don't be like me. Yeah, I got a name and dough on the street. Nighttime comes, I can't sleep. It's the part that rappers don't speak. We don't hit the road cause we're thugs. Don't come out the room, wanna sell drugs. If we got the right guidance and love, would we fight people just like us? How could I knock the hustle to get by? How do you think I ate as a child? Judge no one, done many things wrong. Just don't boast about it in songs, but listen to my older bars. I was just as confused as you probably are, but you grow when you learn. Travel on cut, one too many man, you know, get caught up. One too many man that could have been doctors, end up spending the whole life boxed up. You learn if you study, so set out just to make them money. No cover, it's all about getting poor people to fight with one another. So it's logical that us killing our brothers, dissing our mothers is right in line with the dominant philosophy of our time. But time is a cycle, not a line. Comes back around, you regain your mind. You be ready for the energy I challenge in my rhyme. Remedy the pedigree, the jeopardy your mind when the world's this leverage is a crime. We can all fight with our brothers over crumbs. Harder to fight the one who makes guns. We can all talk get $2. Harder to be the one who seeks knowledge. If we understood economics with no money's nothing, think nothing of it. Money is a means to get wealth, not the wealth itself. And don't get confused, far from broke. All that you see me do I own, but I won't hang what I make around my neck. I know from where that the diamonds came, but I do literally own a library that definitely costs more than your chain. And businesses and property, far from starving. I eat quite properly and I don't care. Just said it for the kids who need to know you're not broke to listen. Don't know an asset from a liability. They never been shown nor told the difference, so they don't change situation. Richest man in Britain is Asian, that's significant, not coincidence. Asian people build businesses not by flossing, going out shopping, giving up the culture for everyone's profit. Who runs Bollywood? Indian people. Who runs our ish? So we shake our ass and dance as if racism just upped and vanished. But has it? No, it's right on course. You're beaten so bad you're trained to ignore. Let me not just make sweeping statements. Give me a second, I'll explain it. For small amounts of drug possession, there's more black people in jail in America than there is for rape and armed robbery and murder all put together. You can say they're just locking up thugs. Imagine they're in prison, every middle class kid that had ever held drugs. Oh, that's right, that'd be your kids. Bigger than that, what is going on with this? Prison in America's private business. They get paid $50K per year per inmate by the state. Just wait, also legally are allowed to use their prison inmates as slaves. Cheap slave labor, big corporations, they come out of jail when they can't get a job. So when we celebrate going to jail, we are literally celebrating enslavement. Add to that, the hood that you live in, engineered social condition that breeds crime by design. Where do you think you get your... And you could say that they're just black, but I like to deal with facts. In the 1920s, you would have found in America black towns, prospering centers of economics to education to make you proud. But some people couldn't bear that the former slaves would not just lie down to the KKK and other hate groups. burn those towns to the ground, killing hundreds if it ain't understood. You think you were always living in the hood? It's only been 60 years since the hung blacks and burned them, and that was so cool. They were your baskets, picnic baskets, even gave kids the day off school. Go see a lynching, have a picnic, it's fun to watch the little monkeys die. And people act a little dysfunctional. You wanna pretend that you don't know why. If your colour means you can be killed and you're powerless to get justice about it, is it difficult to figure out how you would then end up feeling about it? And that ain't excuses, just dealing with the roots of abuses that make a reality. We're a generation of young men speak of ourselves as dirt casually. That's America, this Britain. Something similar, some different. In this country, the first enslaved with the working class. What's changed? Worse jobs, worse conditions, most tax. Look where you're living, yet you go to the pub. Friday night, you will fight with a guy, don't know what for, won't fight with a guy. Suit and a tie who send your kids to die in a war. They don't send the kids to the rich or the politician, it's your kids. The poor British, get the same to go and die in a foreign land. For these wars that you don't understand. Yeah, they say you are British, and that lovely patriotism they feed you. But in reality, you have more in common with immigrants than with your leaders. I know, both sides of my family, black and white, a fed ghetto mentality, reality in this system. Poor people are dirt regardless of shade. But with that said, let's not pretend that everything is the same. When our grandparents came here to Britain, if you had a criminal record you couldn't get in. That ain't protected from all of the stupid abuses they will be living. Kicked in the teeth, stabbed in the street, many times firebombed our houses, put feces through our letterbox, and of course the cops did so much about it. Daily, up to the 80s, people spitting in my pram cause I was a baby. But of course, that has had no effect on why today we are crazy. And none of this was for any good reason. They were just dark and grieving to ease the guilt now for all of this treatment. Constant stereotypes are needed. So if I celebrate how big that my bricks that I'm flipping, clips that I'm sticking, chicks that I'm hitting, I'm playing my position. But if I teach a kid to be a mathematician, messing with the schism, how they gonna fill a prison when materialism is no longer our religion? What do you think we got now in Britain? Just like America, private prison, prison for profit. That mean when your kids go jail, people make money off it. So keep environments that breed crime, build more jails at the same time. Market badness to the kids in the rhymes. Long as rich kids ain't dying, it's fine. Get them to the point where some are so lost they actually believe if they don't celebrate killing themselves off. That it's because they're soft. Was Malcolm soft? Was Marley soft? Tell me, was Marcus Garvey soft? Well, was Muhammad Ali soft? Nah, I think not, but they want us to think that the road is cool. Being on road is all we could do. We don't control the wholesale production, so who benefits from us moving the food? Or thinking there's no way out of road life, but Malcolm X used to hustle on the roadside. And Marcus Garvey organised more than 6 million people with no Facebook or Twitter. Why is it something you can't eat? One of my own homeboys did a 10 straight in the boxing yard. Now what's he doing? Passing his doctorate. Don't tell me that it's too hard. Who trained you to believe you're inferior? Songbo Ebedo in Nigeria are the remains of an ancient moat dug 1,000 years ago. 20 meters wide, 70 down. Round the remains of an ancient town that's 400 square miles around. 400 square miles around. Please don't believe me, it was a documentary on BBC. But we ain't studying history, too busy watching MTV. And MTV said, wear platinum. Now everybody wanna go and wear platinum. And MTV said, pop magnums. Now everybody wanna go and pop magnum. If MTV said, drink prune juice, you will start hearing that in tune soon. Hey, today I wore my Cartier. Is it now more important what I got to say? Oh, and I drive a Mercedes, by the way, so everybody listen to what I got to say. Does that make you all happy? But my head's still nappy. Think for myself, so some mad at me, but on the mic ain't not one bad as me. All of this here's good for the rhymes. Put us in the same place at the same time, and it's clear to everybody I'm out of my mind. Some of these guys are running out of their rhymes. Clear to everybody that has got ears. I'm the guy that they just might fear, that they wanna get near, but they can't have a peer. All dear, I'm hard liquor, you just like beer. Front on the kid for another 5 years. Come to my shows and some cry tears. Mean that much to them, it's a movement. I don't speak for myself, but a unit. Black, white, man, woman, anyone who respects truth we put in. Dudes are like no dinner, we're just pudding. Yeah, you're sweet but no substance pudding. You can never ever be with a level on. Our songs get played out there in Lebanon. We speak for the people properly, not for the old fat guys in offices and the girls loving. It ain't fair, you can't even be bothered to comb his hair. Anyway, that's enough kissing my own ass. Back to the more important task of being so shower. I got half the hood screaming, knowledge is power. And I ain't saying that'll change rap back, but I do know this for a fact. Right now there's a youth on your block with his hands on his face screwed up. So he don't care, don't give a that he won't let nobody call his bluff, but the words go in. Open your shackles, once that's happened there is no going backwards. You start to see what is really happening. Who the enemy you should be attacking is. So read, stuck on the block, read, sitting in the box, read, don't let them say what you can achieve. Cause when people are enslaved, one of the first things they do is stop them reading. Cause it is well understood that intelligent people will take their freedom. Cause if we knew our power, we would understand we can't be held down. If we knew our power, we would not elevate not one of these clowns. If we knew our power, we wouldn't get arrogant when we get 2 pennies. If we knew our power, we would see what everybody sees, that we're rich already. But never mind, MCs go run for your mummy. I'm hungry, I run for my tummy. That's enough, back to worshipping money. I'm off, back to the study. Man! Oh! I can't even burn the booth down, man! And someone pass me that extinguisher! Oh! Oh! Hey, brother!
has been burned.
Illustrate Records. Now that is what you call fire in the booth. Not only they come with real crazy flows, the bars are crazy, the punchlines are crazy. It had a message, man.
One that's based on decentralized peer-to-peer ideas and based on voluntary association. And that's basically what's at the heart of Central Texas Mutual Aid Society. I'm going to be talking about that, big picture, how that can benefit.